Do you care at all the gender of your police force? I don't. I never thought once about it. I don't care. I think it's totally irrelevant and meaningless. But for some, it seems to be a big deal. And I don't understand why. So KCPD announced here that it is pushing for more female officers on the force. Nationally, the article goes here on KCTV5, less than 13% of police officers are female. And the Kansas City Police Department is working to change that, all while battling staffing shortages. Right now, KCPD sits a little bit above the national average for female officers in the force. And they are working to make 30% of KCPD female represented by 2030. So they've got 6 years to double the amount of women they have working for KCPD. To achieve that goal, it's basically impossible to achieve that goal without lowering standards because it is a male-dominated field. And, you know, when I'm thinking about goals for KCPD, you know what goals should be? Lowering murders, limiting crime, getting bad guys off the streets. Not, geez, you know, I hope we get some more female cops. Hope we can double our female cop allotment in the next 6 years, said no one ever. If you've ever been arrested before, have you ever said to yourself, gosh, you know, I'll feel a lot better about this if the cop is fill in the blank gender? Who cares? And why is it that in certain fields run by the government, this stuff becomes goals of people and leaders and governments? You know, this is just how the world works. There are jobs that appeal to men more than women. There are jobs that appeal to women more than men. I've got 2 examples here. Auto repair. Guess what percentage of automotive service technicians are men? Just shot in the dark. What do you think that number is there? John, give me a number. Auto technicians.
95%.
95? That's a good guess. How about you there, Mark? What do you think? Auto technicians. Give me a percentage.
90.
98. 98% of the 768,000 people who work as automotive service technicians and mechanics in 2021 were men. 2% were women. Let's go to the other side of the coin here. Child care workers. What percentage of child care workers in 2021 were women versus men? Give me a number. Take a guess.
I would say 85.
85. All right. That's a good guess by you. The answer, 92. 92% of women in 2021 in the child care workers field were women. Less than 8% were men. Men and women are different.
Talk about a bombshell.
I know. Let's talk about hot takes at 7:08 on a Tuesday. You can't say that these days. But yes, men and women are different. We're different creatures. We are interested in different things. In large part, some are better at different things than others. It's just how the world works. It's how God made us. And to sit here and think that we're going to be pushing and pursuing in a city that is coming off a record year for murders, nonsense like gender, I don't even want to call it equity. It's not really about gender equity, but we're going to care one bit about who's applying to these jobs at KCPD and that gender is in any way going to play a role in this. And that's not simply going to be about, gosh, who's qualified? Who can do the job physically? Who can handle the job mentally? The idea that we would even consider anything as ridiculous as that in this town makes absolutely no sense to me. This is a pet project for politicians. This is not a thing that serious cops would care one bit about. Get me the best people to do the job. I don't care what their gender is. Get me the best people to do the job. It's not about being against women cops or against women. Heck, I've got 3 daughters, and if one of them wants to be a cop, you know what? I'll support them the whole way. In fact, my second, Chloe, she tackles her sister so much. She's going to be 3. Her older sister, Claire, is 5. She tackles her older sister. I could see her chasing down bad guys on the streets and bear tackling them to the ground one day. And she's not a big kid, but, man, she's feisty. Like, I could see her doing that. And if she wanted to do that, I'd support her the whole way. And I would hope that if she were to get a job in that field, it would be because of her qualifications and her skill sets, not because, well, we need more women on the force. Because here's the thing. When you're talking about a employment at a location, it's a zero-sum game. There is a finite amount of jobs. And if somebody is getting a job in part because of their gender, then that means somebody else is not getting a job. It's not a pie that can grow. It's a finite number of jobs. And if you're favoring jobs for law enforcement or anything for that matter, based on race, based on sex, then somebody else is getting hurt for that job application based on their gender or their race. And everything about that is wrong. 913-4087-957. Let's kick it off with Kevin. He's on KCMO. Kevin, good morning.
Hey, Pete, how are you?
I'm doing well, my man. What's happening?
Oh, just heading to work and thinking that here within the last 4 years, we've heard about how much they wanted to defund the police departments and then how the police department couldn't get enough recruits to have a training class and so on. It's like, and now you're worried about trying to double the amount of women officers you have on the force. It's like, why don't you just focus on embracing them and focus on, just building the force as needed.
Beggars can't be choosers, Kevin. I mean, that's exactly right. You are in a line of work. Well said. You're talking about a line of work where it's very difficult to recruit as is. Ask any cop in this town, anyone who's been a cop for 20, 30 plus years. They will tell you privately the standards have been decreased dramatically right now because they can't get people to do the job. And now, if you start having to consider one's gender in addition to lowering the standards, what are you going to get? You're not going to get the best. There's no way in heck you're going to get the best. 913-408-7957, 913-408-7957 as we roll through the morning here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And I'm seeing a lot of this on the text line. Pete, 130-pound officer versus a 200-pound suspect. Who do you want? Who wins? Now, I get it. But listen, there's more to policing than just being a patrol officer, right? There's other parts of being in KCPD that you can do that doesn't involve chasing down 200-pound suspects. But I agree. I mean, listen, who do I want chasing down the 200-pound suspect? A 200-pound male or a 130-pound female? That's a no-brainer. I get that argument as well, John.
Well, I suppose I might calm down a little more if I'm talking to a woman, but that's just me, So there might be a slight advantage in a situation for a woman.
There could be, yeah. And that's an argument to make as well.
Yeah.
But I would simply just sit here and say this. If you are KCPD and you are trying to hire right now and you have struggled mightily, there is one thing that you should care about. Who is capable of doing the job? And doubling a police force of women, doubling your women allotment in 6 years is a tremendously tall ask and can only result in decreasing standards to make that happen. 913-408-7957. It's 7:14. I want to get to more of you on this. We'll get you the latest on this Baltimore bridge crash that is being called a mass casualty event as well, as we roll through the 7 o'clock hour on 95.7 FM, KCMO. KCPD announcing here they want to double their female workforce to 30% of KCPD female represented by 2030. Right now, they're sitting at about 14%. The national average is for 13%. And you would think for all things, for a department to worry about, any department, never mind one that's, coming off a record level for homicides, the gender of your workforce would be like number 172 of things you would care about. John's an Independence. His daughter is a cop. John, good morning. Thanks for checking in.
Good morning. It takes a special kind of woman to be a cop. It's not a game out there. I know my daughter been in situations that makes my skin crawl, but she does the job that the men expect her to do because she knows she has to do what they do. She has been chasing guys 200, 250 pounds. She only weighs 120. She's been known to chase them. She went into a fight when one female police officer was holding the crowd back. The other officer, there's one officer against three men. She jumped right in with the other officer to fight. I mean, if you're not that kind of woman, you better back off and leave because you're not going to make it. It's a tough job, and they see things that, not normal people see every day. And it gets to them, and, I mean, it is what it is.
John, what made her want to get into law enforcement?
I'm not really sure. That's been her dream job. She's got a degree in criminal justice, and she's always wanted to do that. That's just something she's wanted to do. And, you couldn't take her out of it.
That's amazing. I mean, listen, she deserves all the credit in the world, and obviously there are amazing female cops, and it's people like your daughter that we want to be cops, that have dreamed to be cops, that know, listen, this is not a job that is going to, it's going to bring you a lot of rewards, but you are going to have to hustle, and you are going to put your life on the line on a regular basis. And she knows that, and she knows she's got to keep up with the guys, right?
And that's right. She does, too. Even her training officer, who does not really like female police officers, I talked to him and said, man, she's fantastic. She does a great job. We know she's got our back when we're in a situation.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, that's what we want there, John, and thanks for checking in, and we wish her well. Do you mind sharing, you don't have to share names or anything, but what department she's with?
I'd rather not.
That's fine.
She's with one of the surrounding areas.
That's great. Good deal.
You.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you, man. I mean, that is exactly the kind of person you want. But the minute you start putting quotas on things is the minute you start lowering standards. The minute you say, I want to hit a workforce that is X% white, black, Asian, Latino, male, female, gay, straight, is the minute you are no longer hiring based on merit. There's no doubt in my mind. John's daughter got that job because of merit. John's daughter got that job and is working in one of our area law enforcement agencies because she kicks butt. And she's not intimidated. And she'll chase the guys. And she's not going to be afraid. And she's going to put herself in those life and death situations. And it's because of the talent that she brings to the table and that she brings to that department that makes her a valuable member of that department. But if you say, hey, KCPD, which is, 1,500 folks, we want to double in 6 years our female end of the workforce, you are asking for trouble. That's what you're doing. 913-408-7957. Let's fit in Glenn. He's on KCMO. Glenn, go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. I agree with you. We need to get the best qualified. My father was a police officer in Ohio. My father-in-law was a police officer in LAPD after World War II. But I think we need to think about this. I actually watched, when I was in college, we had an exchange professor from Japan, little short guy. He was probably 4'11". We had a guy that had a black belt. His dad was a physician in Independence. I'm not going to mention his name. But I watched this little guy kick this guy's ass. We found out afterwards that he was the judo champion for Japan in 1960. Also, I had a dentist that... All
right, before we get to story time with Glenn, what's your point?
My point is that we need people that can think and also people that can leverage whatever assets that they have.
Yeah.
Maybe it is a woman, but if they can talk somebody, to use the phrase, talk them off the ledge, then you save like a deadly force incident, and you can maybe resolve it.
Yes.
So I'm not saying we should have quotas. I agree with you, Pete. When you start hitting quotas, you start lowering the standard. We need the best. We need the brightest. And I think let's look at the women, like the guy that called in. Maybe somebody's feisty, or like your daughter, maybe she's feisty and she's got kind of a scrappy attitude. I don't necessarily want to write them off. I still
You are bringing up excellent points, Glenn. Excellent points. And when you talk about the gray area, that's exactly what I'm referencing. Not every job within a police department is chasing bad guys, right? There are jobs that certain people's personalities may be better suited towards. And if that personality within that person is better suited towards fill in the blank job and they happen to be a woman, absolutely, go for it. I think that's outstanding. Outstanding. But when the government starts saying, hey, we're going to do this with certain professions, and it mostly comes from agencies overseen by the government, right, where you suddenly get these quotas that come out of nowhere. That's where you get yourself into trouble. Instead of saying, to use my earlier analogy, there are just certain things that men find more appealing than women and vice versa. The child care worker industry is 92% women. The automotive services industry is 98% men. You don't see the automotive service industry saying, gosh, we got to get, 10% women workers by 2030. They're just like, no, give me people who know how to fix cars. And for the most part, that's more appealing to men than it is to women. That's it. It's not that difficult. Although I'll tell you what, when it comes to switching out wiper blades, I can't figure that damn thing out. I mean, switching out the wiper blades, to me, is like trying to do a Rubik's Cube. My wife can do that in 2 seconds, though. So what's that tell you? Make fun of me all you want. On the text line, Pete, what about some of the men just identifying as women on KCPD? There we go. Now we got it all figured out. Take a percentage of the guys and say, hey, you're women for the day, and boom. City Hall, get out of your way. I like that.